Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to Capes and Strategies. Today we'll be analyzing Wilson Fisk and Norman Osborn in terms of their potential for real-world business success. This involves examining their leadership traits, business strategies, and personal characteristics. Both are complex figures in their respective Marvel universes, known for their intelligence and ruthlessness. For this, we dove into the comics and really broke down the animated series of Spider-Man, the newest movies, some of the comic book traits, and of course Daredevil, to find out in a real-world scenario who would be more successful between Wilson Fisk, Kingpin, and Norman Osborn of the Goblin of Oscorp Industries. So let's break them down and at the end see who would be more on top. So let's start with Wilson Fisk. Let's talk about his leadership style. Wilson Fisk is really an authoritarian and intimidating leader. Fisk leads through fear and authority and demands absolute loyalty and control. I'm sure some of you have worked with somebody who rules through fear or manages through fear. They will often threaten your job or may even threaten to give you a feedback or a write-up if you don't do what they say. They're not looking to get your buy-in. They're just looking to strictly get you to do what they say, no matter what. But Kingpin is also strategically astute. He's known for his strategic thinking and long-term planning. So the one thing you will say about Wilson Fisk is that even though he does not look in the moment, he does do a very good job of looking around corners. Now, you may compare this to he's always thwarted by the superhero, but generally those who are in the right tend to come out on top. Not always, but often. So that's often the reason why he is lacking the wins that you may normally see in a comic book show or in the actual comics. But he does do a great job of looking around corners, and that's a great leadership style of him. That's a feather in his cap. So despite his ruthlessness, Fisk can be persuasive and charismatic. Fisk can often be seen talking, very calmly, but you can tell by his actual words and the stern look that he gives that he is being very ruthless and maybe passively threatening your job, but in a very charismatic way. These are leaders that we may see lead through fear, but they're a little bit more palatable to work for because you don't feel that fear right away. So taking some of these leadership traits, we wanted to look at real world strengths, right? So strategic planning, like we talked about, his ability to think ahead and plan strategically and see around corners could be a significant asset and is a significant asset in the real world. His determination and resilience. So his ruthlessness and relentless pursuit of his goals can drive a company to new heights, right? So his ability to reach for his goals no matter what can definitely help a company be much more successful. And his resourcefulness, his ability to use available resources and effectively use them to his advantage. So being able to do more with less is a great attribute of a leader. And not only does it help save money, save resources, but it means that you are doing the most with what you have versus needing tons of money to throw at a project. You can see a project through fruition with execution and not the dollar, which is great. Now, talking about his strengths, let's go into some of his potential weaknesses. And of course, as a villain, we have really legal and ethical risks for Wilson Fisk. His willingness to operate outside the law would definitely lead to legal issues and affect the reputation of the company. And reputation management is one of the weaknesses that we had down for him. Is Fisk's style might harm public perception in business relationships to where people may not want to work with his company anymore because they don't want to be associated, especially in this world that we have today, with a company that is doing things inappropriately. Let's talk about big pharma, right? Let's talk about the businesses that were upcharging for certain medicines just to make a buck and taking away the fact that these medicines were harming and killing those who needed that medicine and couldn't afford it. So that's reputation management. Let's go into Norman Osborn. Let's talk about his leadership style. Ambitious and cunning, very cunning. Osborn is highly ambitious and often pursuing his goals with ingenuity. He is very smart. He's very cunning. He's almost like a fox. He's innovative and yet also unstable. He's known for his scientific genius, but his mental instability can be a significant drawback. So this kind of points me in the way of Elon Musk. He's a genius. He's great. He's very innovative, but often his public statements and his instability can be harmful for Tesla and his other companies. Norman is a manipulative leader. So Norman can be charismatic, but often uses manipulation to achieve his goals. So unlike Kingpin, who uses his charisma in a more ruthless way, Norman's is going to be much more palatable and but definitely manipulative. And as long as you're ethically charismatic, that's where we want to be. And I'm not saying that Norman is, but much more charismatic ethically than I would say Kingpin would be. What are the strengths for real world when it comes to the Goblin? He is innovative and intelligent. So his genius really in science and technology could lead to groundbreaking advancements. He is, the Tony Stark-esque of the Spider-Man universe. So the, Oscorp really would be the Apple of the day, except they just wouldn't be working on cell phones. I believe that in the real world, Oscorp would have their hands in health. They would have their hands in, earth-saving devices. So there would be tons of innovation for Oscorp because of Norman. And strategic and aggressive business tactics is really going to be a good strength, especially if we're comparing them to Wilson Fisk's company. Osborn is really aggressive and could propel rapid business growth and market dominance because of his aggression to be able to, push forward. And of course, we're going to talk about this later in other weeks. Adaptability, his ability to adapt to various situations and turn them to his advantage is definitely going to help in the real world. Now, we talked about Norman's strength. Let's talk about his weaknesses. Mental instability. His unpredictable nature could really lead to erratic decision making, which is never good. We want something to be concise. This is why we have a board of directors. We want to make sure that everybody can vote and have a good, have really be on the same page. And his ethical and legal concerns, like Fisk, Norman's ethical shortcuts could result in legal troubles and especially reputational damage for the company. Oscorp would be in hot water quite often in the real world scenario if it operated like it did in the comics and on TV. Now, if we compare the both of them together in the real world, both Fisk and Osborn have traits that could lead to significant business success, which is great, but also they have potential downfalls, right? So altogether, Wilson Fisk is strategic mind and his determination can make his ventures successful. However, his authoritarian style and legal and ethical shortcuts pose really some larger risks to the company, particularly in a business environment that values transparency and ethical conduct like we do today. Norman, on the other hand, his flaws and also his strengths are his innovation and his strategic aggression could lead to breakthroughs and rapid expansion, which is great. However, his mental instability and ethical disregard are significant liabilities. They could lead to unstable leadership and catastrophic business decisions. And I will say that of the two of these guys, and this is kind of where we wrap up, the two of these guys, Wilson Fisk really operates more as a shadow leader, where Norman Osborn is the face of Oscorp. Even though they both have their last names on the title or on the building, Norman is much more forward-facing than Fisk is. So if we're determining who would be more successful, it really depends on how they mitigate their weaknesses. And that's with anything. That's with you as a leader, how successful you are, or how you build upon your weaknesses and make them possible strengths. Fisk's calculated and strategic approach might offer more stability, whereas Osborn's innovative genius could lead to more significant breakthroughs, but at a higher risk. In a real-world scenario, I believe that Fisk's approach might lead to a steadier, if less spectacular, success due to his ability to plan and execute strategies and precision, assuming he manages the legal risks effectively. Osborn's success would likely be more volatile, potentially yielding to higher peaks, but also greater risk due to the instability and tendency towards unethical decisions. So I will say, like I said, I think Kingpin will take this one. I think his company will do better long term. I think that Osborn in the real world, and I'm not saying that he's going to be the hobgoblin out and about in the real world or the goblin, but his mental instability, taking him as he is now, would definitely lead to some strife for Oscorp. Whereas Fisk Industries, I think, will be on a steady state, but ultimately be worth more and be more successful without pitfalls than Oscorp is. And then ultimately, with so many pitfalls, eventually the reputation of your company is known for innovation, but not something that you want to work for, and or something that legal governments may have to look deeper into on a regular basis, which is not what you want for your company. You do not want your company to be on the wrong side of the law and for them to look for those flaws every time you do something new. So that's my assessment. I definitely think Fisk takes this one. If you do agree or you disagree, let me know in the comments. Tell me why, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, I'm Aaron, your host. See you then.